Let's consider a kind of price discrimination called price skimming. This is a strategy sometimes called intertemporal price discrimination, where the firm changes its price over time. The basic idea is that the firm wants to start by charging a high price and then gradually lowering that price over time. It wants to do this because it knows that its customers can be divided up into different groups. One group is not very price sensitive and wants to have the good or the product as soon as possible. Other groups are willing to wait longer. They're more price sensitive and they're not in such a hurry to have the good or the service. However, the problem is that the firm doesn't know which category any particular individual falls in. So it needs people to sort themselves out. So the firm needs to offer this price strategy, and then people get to choose whether they want to buy now or whether they want to buy later. This strategy is also connected to the idea that we saw earlier, where firms can offer products of different quality. And so a lower quality version, which would be cheaper, could also be offered at a later time. Let's just consider some of the many examples that are out there. One common example is the offering of a hardcover book. That is typically more expensive, and often hardcover editions of books are published before paperbacks come out. Sometimes you can wait as long as a year for a paperback version. There is, in this case, a difference in cost, but the difference in cost is not all that great. So the profit contribution of the hardcover is greater than that of the paperback. Another common example is that of electronics. So a particular new version of an iPhone, for example, could initially have quite a high price, but later that price could decline. If you want to rent a movie on iTunes and the movie has just come out, you're much more likely to pay a higher price than if you wait a few years, and you would expect to see the price to come down. And the same holds for a variety of other kinds of goods. Well, what's the idea here? The idea is, again, that we're going to allow customers to divide themselves up into different groups. Let's have a look at how we could illustrate that in the usual picture. So the demand curve shows the willingness of customers to pay. Some people have a high willingness to pay, others a relatively low willingness to pay. So what we could do is simply set the profit maximizing price right now. But when we do that, we're going to have to be aware that we're pricing some customers out of the market. So that initial price, which I'm calling P now in the diagram, is going to exclude people who were willing to pay something above marginal cost and therefore contribute to profits, but they're not willing to pay this profit maximizing price. So what we could do is set this higher price, sell this quantity that I'm calling Q now, and leave the other customers to wait. And later we could charge them a lower price. So there's a part of the demand curve, which I've colored in red here, which is going to be waiting around. And that part of the demand curve will become the new demand curve once we've sold this amount here at the higher price. So those buyers are still around, interested in our product. So what we could do is at some later time take that remaining demand and construct a separate price. So we could figure out in the usual way what marginal revenue would be associated with that demand. We could compare that with marginal cost, and we would find it profitable to sell this amount later at this price here. This is the price that we were selling the good at before, and these customers who are now in the market were not willing to pay that higher price. They were only willing to pay some lower price. So what we're doing is we're creating some additional profit contribution. The difference between the price that we're now charging at this later time is greater than marginal cost. So although I haven't colored it in, that rectangle there shows us the additional profit contribution that we're getting by selling to this second group of customers. Well, I could keep repeating this, of course, because this price has also left some people who are willing to pay more than marginal cost out of the market. So perhaps at some later time we could lower the price even further and sell to those people. So just to quickly summarize, the idea here is that we set different prices over time. Initially a higher price and then later a lower price to capture those more price sensitive and less impatient customers.